know the drill. This is Last Call. Caden, Colford alongside Jake Helton for UINDY Sports, Colts football, Fever basketball, Pacers when we get to it. Everything Indiana sports, we got you. We start right here on campus with homecoming action just a couple of days ago. And, well, we wish for a better result, but we got one heck of a game. Final score of 28-24. Saginaw Valley State came into Key Stadium and knocked off the 15th ranked team in the country. A huge win for them. It was a big game for both squads, but for Saginaw Valley to take it out of this one, that was huge.
Absolutely. And coming into the game, we knew that there was going to be some weather issues. We didn't know how bad it would be. The rain actually persisted from the first snap to the last snap, and honestly a little bit after that as well. But Saginaw has a great run defense. Right there you see that pass over the top. This UINDY secondary had a great game, but it was just the small details. The very end of the game, that last play, got the linebackers to bite up on a QB scramble from McKenzie, and that was the game-winning play right there. But the big one, that pick six, I don't know if we'll get a look at that, but
we will indeed.
Game-changing.
You'll also notice, we just saw the ball roll out. It was pouring this entire game, which was really unfortunate for both squads. We saw, 8 total fumbles? I think 7 total fumbles on the game. 3 were taken away by UINDY. And here's this pick six that you were mentioning. Eli Gordon, a heck of a game for him coming out of Saginaw Valley. And UINDY made it tight down the stretch, right? John Lewis, a touchdown here to give the Greyhounds the lead. But then Saginaw Valley, oh, wow. This throw, a jump throw over his offensive line to go more than half the distance of the entire field, and which led to a couple of UINDY mistakes. You'll see here an interception sealed the game for Saginaw Valley State. This has major implications when we look to the postseason and everything that UINDY wants to do. Obviously, you're still looking to be ranked, but in the toughest division in Division II football in the Midwest, you're looking at Central Missouri, Ferris State, Grand Valley State, all of these teams that there's a good chance that they don't lose a game this season. So you're not only looking to beat teams from here on out, you're looking to blow teams out 30, 40 plus.
Absolutely. And while we take a look at this UINDY team, some bright spots, some not. Gavin Sukup kind of struggled, but that's to be expected in the rain. But you see those 40 attempts in the passing, and we talked about that a little bit before this. That's a lot of passes in the rain, and especially like that, still managed to get 250 yards.
That's a lot of passes in a regular game, let alone when it's a downpour. But as you were saying, 250 yards still.
And Anthony Crowell, the highlight of that offensive receiving core this game, almost 100 yards, a touchdown, and 7 big receptions. I mean, I felt like every single time I said his name, it was big play.
And you remember that huge hit on the kickoff return, right? That was right after he caught a touchdown, laid the boom just one play later. A huge game for him. That was the 23 freshman of the year. And how about his brother on the other end, Key Crowell? He's putting in his own resume for the 24 freshman of the year.
Right alongside him, Son Flowers, 2 forced fumbles. In my opinion, 2 perfect form tackles. Put his helmet right on the ball. Exactly what you have to do when it's raining like that. But obviously you want to see that win. And Coach Keevers and his squad, this is a team that we have seen in just about every single different scenario in these past 2 years. They were undefeated going into the last game of the season, or 2 games left in the season.
Yep.
They lose that one. This one, they're coming in. This is the first and, honestly, in my opinion, the only competition on this schedule. And unfortunately for them, they are going to have to win out, in my opinion, to make this regional tournament.
And obviously that was the goal anyways, right? But now stakes are a little higher, but this is a team that can most definitely live up to the challenge. Look, you drop back for 40 passes in the rain. That's going to be tough for anybody. As you said, still notched out 250 yards. Gavin's a guy that's thrown for over 300 already multiple times this season, working on an offensive player of the year in the conference last year. I'm not scared for this team. I think they're well coached. I think they're well disciplined, and I think you can get it done throughout the remainder of the season. But what will it take is the question, Jake.
I mean, the defense has really stepped up a lot in these past couple of games, and if we want to look on the offensive side of the ball, I think one big thing, we see Sukup dropping back a little bit farther than last year, a little bit less of a run threat than he was in years prior. And I would almost argue at some points in last season, he was more of a run-first quarterback. And now you see that 40 up there, and you mentioned a lot for any quarterback. I doubt that we'll see that for the rest of the season, but maybe that's just the air raid offense that Coach Keevers is going for, high-scoring games. Obviously, the rain had to play a little bit of a factor in that. 23 incompletions is quite a few. That's some Anthony Richardson level numbers right there. But this is a very talented squad, and like you said, I'm not scared for them. I think that they have a very good chance of winning out. They are going to have to rely a little bit on Saginaw to win one or both of those games later in the season against Ferris State and Grand Valley State. One of those wins should be enough to make this loss and not look too bad on the Greyhounds record. So I think win out, obviously, worry about yourself first, and then get to the playoff implications.
Coming up, you have William Jewell at William Jewell next week, Quincy the week after, and then McKendree. Of those 3 games coming up, what game sticks out to you, and how did the Greyhounds, again, kind of set the tone for the rest of their season?
I mean, if I'm Coach Keevers, McKendree has to be that game that's circled. That's the one loss on that, or well, I guess 2 if you want to count the playoffs, but 1 regular season loss of last year. It was on senior day. And obviously this time they're going to have to go to McKendree and play. So I think that one's going to be the big game. You want to lock in and get a little bit of a revenge. I mean, obviously you don't like to lose on senior day. I'd imagine that might be their senior day. Go out there, get a little bit of payback from last year.
And this might sound a little off, but this weekend definitely an ego hit. I think getting your swagger back is going to be a huge part of this team. Getting Gavin confident again, getting this receiver core confident again, and again the offensive line, getting them back into their stride, back into their confidence, because Leonard Henry IV really wreaked havoc on those 5 guys on both ends of the offensive line. He had, 3.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 2 QB hurries.
I felt like I was saying his name every other play whenever we were calling that game. But that 40 in the passing attempt column does show me that Coach Keevers is very confident in his guy. Gavin Sukup is his guy, and statistically looking at it, I mean, he has a very good chance to repeat GLVC Player of the Year. Once again. He's already won 2 Player of the Weeks or this early in the season. I believe he's just over 1,000 yards on the season now. So good things looking for Gavin Sukup in this offense. Someone we didn't really mention, John Lewis, 24 carries, 104 yards, and I would have honestly liked to see them use him more. I just feel like if it's raining, people are struggling to handle the ball. The catches, I mean, there were a lot of drops, obviously. I'd like to see you go to your star running back. You brought him in for a reason, and I say you use him, but obviously, some things to work on for the Greyhounds.
I'm sure we'll see him a lot next week. And again, the final score of that, 28-24, Saginaw Valley State. But some good news in UINDY athletics, a 6-0 win yesterday against William Jewell. And we have this week's Player of the Week in Mia Winters. How about a Hattie for her? 3 goals, an assist, and a dominant performance from this team. And she leads the squad this year in goals with 6. This team looks really good, Jake.
And that's something that I feel like all these UINDY squads have. They all have a leader, someone on their team to get them going in the right direction. And we see it in the football game. You see 17 in that first quarter. It's good starts. That's how you getting off to a good start. That sets the tone for the rest of the game. And obviously, 6-0, they played a full game of offense and defense. So very impressive around the world of UINDY athletics.
Hounds got that hustle in them. We have a Player of the Week every week right here on Last Call. But when we come back, more college football, IU and Notre Dame.
So the overall mission here at Flannel House Indy is to help with the development and growth, the self-efficiency and self-sufficiency of the near northwest side of Indianapolis. When the AA closed in the area, that left the near northwest side a food desert. So Brandon Cosby, the executive director of Flannel House, started with the Flannel House Farms, where they grow fresh produce organically for the neighborhood around. and then later on down the line, Clio's came about. So we're here to help with the sustainability of getting fresh food at cheap prices to the locals around. Black owned, black ran. That's the gist of Clio's for the most part.
One, two, three, four. A big fiver for IU. 5 wins in a row, starting their season out perfect with a big win.
But how about the other number?
What's that?
23rd in the nation, the official ranking of your Indiana Hoosiers. First time in a long time.
Yeah, first time that I can remember for a long time, right? And
might even be first in our lifetime. I mean, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I don't know that I don't remember seeing them.
That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like to a lot of IU fans. But as they win this one, 42-28, another great game for Rourke. 360 yards, 3 touchdowns. I got to ask you, what flip has switched for this IU squad? Why are we seeing a 180 in terms of this football program?
I mean, I'd say it definitely has to be the coaching. The coaching has been way better than it has been in the past couple of years. Obviously, the big game this year, we talked about it. It was kind of polarizing. We had differing opinions. They went to UCLA, got that big win, and now they are rolling through the Big Ten, quite literally. I mean, if you were to look at this game, if you watch the highlights, you'll see an absolute horrible first half by Curtis Rourke. 2 interceptions, and this Maryland team honestly probably should have won the game. If you look at the stats, Billy Edwards, 289, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. They're just sloppy play. That's the big thing. Indiana had over 500 yards offensively in total. So, I mean, if you're Maryland, as a Big Ten team, that's kind of embarrassing to give up 500 yards defensively, but I think that shows the true power of this IU team. They're the top 10 offense, top 10 defense in all of college football, and I think that 23 is very well deserved. This is a talented squad that, honestly, my roommate is a big Michigan fan. I've been talking a lot of crap. I think that I wouldn't be surprised to see College Game Day go to Indiana versus Michigan. I would not be surprised.
Hey, that might be the place to be. They have Northwestern, Nebraska, and Washington coming up on their schedule. What a culture shift for the Hoosiers. And now we'll shift to Notre Dame, who played Louisville in a 15-16 matchup. This was a tough game. But how about Notre Dame pulling this one out against, like you said, or at least your opinion, one of the best offenses in college football in Louisville?
Yeah, in my opinion, this is definitely one of the best, if not the best passing offenses in all of college football. And it might not look like it statistically, but if you are to take a look at these highlights, unfortunately we don't. Oh no, we do have a couple of highlights, but
surprise!
This receiving core is just incredible from Louisville. Not something that you typically see from a Louisville team, but I was very impressed offensively. And then I will say I have been a Riley Leonard hater for the past 3 weeks. He proved me wrong today. You see right there, it's very, very impressive. But Riley Leonard, another short pass out to the flat. But he did have a couple passes down the field, and he was able to get out and rush against Louisville better than I had thought. I didn't think he would be able to do what he had been doing against these lower-level teams, against a team like Louisville. But once again, the rain played a very big factor in almost every game in the Midwest region.
Ball's flying everywhere. Ball was flying everywhere. Field soaking. But as you said, Riley Leonard, a couple touchdowns, 160 yards for him, really playing his role well, got to say. And I think the defense of this Notre Dame squad, keeping Louisville and their offense to just 24 points on the day is huge. And I think if Notre Dame really has a shot, if they are really back, it's going to be their defense that carries them to the playoffs and possibly beyond.
Yeah, and usually you look to the Notre Dame run game, but that's something that we have seen really struggle this year. Jeremiah Love, 11 carries, only 34 yards. Typically, Notre Dame offensive line, that's offensive line university. But this year, really, really struggling. So that's where I would love to see some improvement. Protect Riley Leonard. Obviously, you need to do better in the run game. I'm a big proponent of the run game leads to the pass game. So I think if they want to be a college football playoff contender, they're going to have to level that up.
Thank you, Jake. Football, good game after good game after good game at the college level. We'll talk some NFL, but first, WNBA when we come back.
Emma Donnan, elementary and middle school. Discover the Donnan difference. A school where you can celebrate others. Come together as a community. Be a part of a learning environment where students and teachers are appreciated. Emma Donnan, a culture that can't be beat, that's going onward together. A school filled with love. Emma Donnan.
I love my school.
Well, we're back. Now time to talk about some Fever action. And after a spectacle of a season from Caitlin Clark and her rookie campaign and the rest of this Fever squad putting the WNBA on notice, it has unfortunately come to an end after an 87-81 win from the Connecticut Sun over the Fever and a 2-game series sweep. We look back on the series and the season. What did you see from the Fever?
Well, if you look back to the start of the season, they started off 0-6, 0-8, something like that, and people were sounding the alarms. Everyone was panicking, saying, oh, Caitlin Clark's not going to be able to play in the WNBA, blah, 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 all this stuff. They turned the season complete 180 all the way around and ended up making it into the WNBA tournament. So for me, I think this is a big win for the Fever just in general. But coming into next season, you definitely have some gaps to fill. You're going to want some defense, but Fever, they're going to be looking to pick up a little bit of size. Sonia Citron out of Notre Dame, she's the big gal. She can get it done.
That's where you're looking for this next year?
That's exactly where I'm looking for the Fever to go. I think they have the 6th pick, and it's looking like she's going to fall back down there. And her and Aaliyah Boston, that could be a dynamic duo down there. And you have the passing, the facilitating of Caitlin Clark. You could be looking at a team competing for a championship next year. And it's crazy to say that, but you could.
What speaks to me is just about everybody on this team is going to get better. Caitlin Clark had the best rookie year in WNBA history, I think. Just up there. If it's not 1, it's 2. And Aaliyah Boston, she'll head into only her 3rd year. Kelsey Mitchell will only get better. And as this team continues to gel, I can only see good things coming. And as you said, size and rebounding, a must. I do think Aaliyah Boston will cover a lot of that gap as she proceeds to get better. I mean, she had, 19 rebounds in this game against the Sun with 16 points. I think she's going to come out and be a double-double machine. That's a nightmare of a pick and roll for the WNBA and Clark and Boston. You add a piece, add some size. I love where this team goes.
Absolutely. The one thing for me is just defense, and obviously the small little things I've talked about week to week with Caitlin Clark, the turnovers and timing of her shots. That's stuff that comes along with experience. So I'm not worried about any of that. But the defense, that's going to be the big thing next year. And if I'm the coach, I am putting a lot of emphasis this offseason on defense, getting back in transition. They gave up a lot of transition points this year. So I think that if they're able to handle it on the defensive end, in my opinion, Caitlin Clark should be getting a lot of her points from defense. It should be defense turning into offense. And she shoots very well in the fast break. That's something we saw a lot of at Iowa. So I'd love to see them getting her the ball, get out a little bit faster. I feel like they slow down in the half court a little bit too much, and it messes with their rhythm a little bit, especially with a streaky shooter like Caitlin Clark.
Use a coach's favorite phrase there. The best offense is a great defense, right? Turning that defense into offense. We're excited to see that next season in the WNBA. Big things are coming for the Indiana Fever. But now we'll move to the Colts, who sneak one out. They snuck it out, Jake. 27-24, and, well, a 2-quarterback system, if you want to call it that, for Shane Steichen's Colts. They They had, a 21-0 lead, and somehow this game ends 27-24. How did it happen?
Well, honestly, I thought it was over when it was 21-0. I left and went to get food, and I come back, and it's a game again. So I did get to enjoy the final bit of that. But one thing I do want to mention before we get into this, can we talk about the coaching decision?
Oh, my goodness.
We talked about this before we walked in here. The coaching decision to put Anthony Richardson back in the game. After that, you see that hit right there, and you think, okay, he's got to be done for the game.
Look at the guy.
No way he's going to play again.
This guy's in pain. He just took a shot to the kidney. He's grasping his hip. He goes to the sideline, okay? He takes one play off. He's back.
What are we doing?
What are we doing? Shane Steichen, please. You know why the Colts always have the best backup quarterback in the NFL? Because they can't keep their starter healthy. That's why. And it's because of play calling like that. What are we doing? First play back. I understand it was an option play. I understand he has the chance to hand it off to Jonathan Taylor, but we're taking that risk with a quarterback in his second year with as much upside as this guy, and we wonder why we are, even now at 2-2?
I do think there's a little bit of upside to that, and we'll get to that in a second. But before, we'll keep it on the negative note here. Justin Fields, 300 yards. That's something that obviously he has worked a lot during this offseason. This is a very talented Steelers team, in my opinion. But as a Colts defense, you got to have a little bit more pride than that. He carried the ball 10 times for 55 yards and scored twice. I mean, that's not a Colts defense. Colts defense does not let that happen. But like you said, shouldn't have been a game. I don't think it really was. I mean, the Colts like to make it a little dramatic sometimes. Joe Flacco, though, very good game. Picked the ball up right where it was left. And we'll look at Anthony Richardson. I mean, that was the makings of a great game right there. Had he been able to stay in it.
We were in for a historic performance. You better believe it. But Joe Flacco coming in to do Joe Flacco things, to throw for 2 touchdowns, 168 yards. A big deal. He came in, filled a role, and he allowed the playmakers on the Colts to really do some damage. Jonathan Taylor with a couple big receptions. Michael Pittman Jr. finally did something on the field, but I guess it helps when you have a quarterback that can hit you in the hands.
I mean, I was definitely glad to see Jonathan Taylor getting back into the mix of things. It was a pretty big struggle for him the first couple of weeks, and now to see him get over that 100-yard mark in a game, I'm hoping that builds his confidence a little bit, gets him more involved. We'll have to see what happens with Anthony Richardson. I can't really imagine him playing in the next couple weeks. I mean, that looks like a pretty hard hit. Obviously, we won't speculate, and we don't have any idea what the official injury is, but hopefully he is able to come back because the Colts are looking like they're going to have a solid season pieced together, especially when you got a guy like this coming in for support. So I think the Colts are going in the right direction, and with a quarterback like Joe Flacco, I think it favors the pass game a little bit more, but also they're not going to be trying to run that option, so I think that also helps out Jonathan Taylor. And he had 21 carries this game, not his greatest performance by any means, but it's showing you that he's getting the ball more, he's going to be able to produce a little bit more, and this is a Colts team that needs the run game. You see right here.
Just look at the opening drive, right?
Exactly. They allowed them to come back, but it's because they can't take time off the clock. They have these 3 and outs. That's how they started the second half. 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. It's like you have to be able to take a little bit of time off the clock, especially in the second half when you have a 3-score lead and you're already playing with your backup quarterback.
Colts have the Jaguars next week, then the Titans, and neither squad really the best. The Colts have no excuse to, I feel, lose either of those 2 games. They had no excuse to lose this one against the Steelers, who were 3-0. But let's remember, those 3 wins came against the Falcons, the Broncos, and blanking on the third.
Yeah.
However, it's not exactly a resume to be proud of. A solid, competent team, but to sneak away with the win, I think is a little underwhelming for the Colts. We'll see them back to Jacksonville on the
Chargers.
6th. It was the Chargers.
10-point win against the Chargers. So still not all that impressive in my opinion. A fairly easy start to the season. Does look like their schedule gets a lot harder at the end. I see Eagles, Chiefs,
These are some warm-up
Ravens.
games. Got to take advantage of them.
They definitely are going to want to keep thinking about these first 3 games rather than this last one heading in to next week. But the Colts, as you mentioned, I don't think they have any excuse not to win these next couple of games.
Okay, take it into prime time. Speaking of prime time, we've got the prime time pick'em coming up right after this.
Kiki, do you love me? Are you riding? Say you never ever leave from beside me.
Duh.
There's often a moment when you're helping somebody with math where they just suddenly get over that little barrier and they get it. It's a nice aha moment, and I really like being involved in helping students achieve that moment. And we do get a lot of those here in the tutoring lab.
Lights are bright. It's game time. The primetime pick'em right now. First matchup between Jake and I. Seahawks at Lions. Geno Smith under center will head to Detroit to play Dan Campbell, Jared Goff's Lions, and I think this one pretty straightforward. The Lions came into the season as a contender, and while we've seen some down games, if you will, I think this is still a championship caliber roster with all the talent they need. They're going to knock off Seattle at home in front of some of the best fans in football.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you. Looking at this matchup, if we look at the injury report, that front four is really struggling. Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams both out. That's the D end and D tackle for Seattle. They're also missing 3 linebackers. So this is a very depleted defense. I expect David Montgomery to have a big game, if not the biggest game he will have all season, and I think that's really what they're going to rely on. A 3.5-point favorite the Lions are, so I mean, I don't know if it'll be that close, but I do think that they have a little bit of an advantage offensively, and being a home game, Dan Campbell gets the crowd hyped up. I mean, that's a very solid head coach right there, and I think this is, as you mentioned, a championship contender squad.
2 fun teams here in this next primetime matchup. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by primetime Baker, they're going to play primetime Kirko and the Falcons in Atlanta. And I'm going with a guy who's putting up numbers. Well, I'll let you go. Who do you think?
Get a little ahead of yourself there. But I'm going to have to go with the Buccaneers. As of right now, Baker Mayfield has looked like a Super Bowl contending not a Super Bowl, an MVP level candidate right there.
Sure.
91 of 129, 984 yards, 8 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions through 4 games. I don't think he's had a start to a season that good since college when he was at Oklahoma. And he said he's bringing the fun back to football, and I kind of liked that. I like the sound of that. Football is fun. And another thing, the speedster out of Oregon, Bucky Irving, emerging as that RB1, and I really like that. He's a little bit shorter, but man, what a guy. He has some of the quickest legs I've seen in the NFL right now. I mean, I'd compare him with Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins.
You know, I like the Bucs as well. And as you mentioned, Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins are in the next game. Titans at the Dolphins. I'll start. I think I'm taking an underdog this time. Will Levis is my GOAT. Will Levis is going to go to Miami and take out a wandering Dolphins team, if you will.
Well, the Titans have spent over $300 million in free agency over the offseason, and as of now, it has not done anything. Will Levis leads the league, or had been leading the league in turnovers heading into Week 3. He was also the most sacked quarterback with 15 sacks through 3 games. He's 0-5 as a starter. His only win, his last win, coming against the Dolphins on a Monday night. So maybe that plays in your favor, but I have to go with the Dolphins in this one. There's no way. They're getting Raheem Mostert back.
Okay.
I'm with the Dolphins.
All right. As a record set, I'm currently ahead 2-3. Jake's at 1-4. Not exactly star-studded resumes for either of us, but we're back to redeem ourselves next week on Last Call.